February is National Heart Month, and it is a real privilege to have Dr. Jonathan Hemphill here presenting a lecture for us for Dining with a Doc at Carmichael Church. And so we're privileged because he has taken time out of his busy schedule to talk with us. Dr. Hemphill is an interventional cardiologist, and he is the director of Cardiac Cath Lab at Mercy San Juan Medical Center, and he has been practicing cardiology at Capital Interventional Cardiology for 26 years plus.
Roughly.
So what a privilege for you to take time out of your super busy schedule, and I know it was busy for you today.
Thank you.
There are people in just 1 hour where you're going to be, less than an hour, you're going to be giving us a full hour's lecture. But there are people who cannot attend, and so what we want to provide for them is just a little snippet of your presentation, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I just have a very simple question to ask you first of all. Why did you choose cardiology as a specialty?
I developed a passion for it when I was in medical school. I always enjoyed the physiology of the heart in undergraduate school. And then as a third and fourth year medical student, I had a mentor that was a superb teacher. And he just had this enthusiasm about the field that was infectious. And I was fascinated by seeing patients in the intensive care unit and what you could do for them at the time, which wasn't really a whole lot back in 1981, 81, 82. That was actually at the birth of interventional cardiology and the ability to dissolve blood clots in heart arteries. One of the first cases of intracoronary streptokinase was given at the facility I was working at the time. And the cardiologist, this other cardiologist, showed the video clip of the artery opening up after giving the streptokinase. And everybody in the room was like just blown away by the miraculousness of this. Because before, in the old days, you had a heart attack patient and they would suffer their heart attack and live with the consequences if they lived. You know, because we didn't even know aspirin worked then to reduce the mortality risk from heart attacks. So it was a struggle just to get the patient through the acute event because they would have chest pain for hours and you could give them very little at the time other than you could manage their arrhythmias, you could manage their heart failure that would develop sometimes, and then there was all this stuff after the heart attack. In those days, people stayed at bed rest for 7 to 10 days. They would get deep vein thrombosis, which is a clot in the leg vein, and then they would, have these complications that we don't even really see anymore, which is a blessing, and that experience, kind of molded me to become a cardiologist.
And you've never looked back.
Exactly.
It is an exciting field, and all that advances is amazing.
Right. I grew up in the era of all that new learning. Andreas Grunzig was the father of angioplasty. He did the first angioplasty in a human right around that same time in the very late, it was like 79 or 80 in Germany. And then, just as I became a doctor is when all that field was just starting to heat up. Early 1980s.
That's exciting. We all know that heart disease is the #1 killer in North America. I mean, 1 out of 4 will die from heart disease. That is just such a staggering number. And with all the advances in medicine and intervention, it's still the #1 killer for both men and women. So what do you as a cardiologist see as the largest underlying culprit for this killer disease? I know there's a lot of things, but what do you really see?
It's our diet, it's our lifestyle, there's just an abundance of fats and highly processed foods and sugars and so forth. I mean, we've pretty much nailed the smoking thing.
Yes.
We've really been beating people over the head with the idea that smoking is not healthy, and I think people get that. It's a harder sell now to express to people how important the diet is, because it's so easy in today's society to get any flavor of food you want at any time. I mean, you can walk into the convenience store or the supermarket or I bet you any person in the United States can drive from their house to wherever they work, and within 5 minutes they could get a smorgasbord of flavorful foods that are not very healthy for you.
So true.
The fast food, the burgers and fries and the pizza, and even when you're at the checkout counter, for heaven's sakes, they've got cakes and little pies and all kinds of candy that really is not very good for you to eat all the time. It's like, my grandmother used to say, no, we're going to go to Howard Johnson's. You can't have McDonald's, when I was a kid. And I'm glad she made me eat my green beans.
Very good.
So, but, when it all boils down to it, a lot of what we see and what I do stems from bad dietary habits and not getting enough exercise and just generally not taking care of yourself.
Well, we know that interventions today definitely save lives. Right? But we know that intervention does not cure the disease. It's just a treatment.
That's exactly right.
It does not cure the underlying cause of atherosclerosis, of coronary artery disease. So as a cardiologist, you can only do so much for your patient, and you give it everything that you've got for them.
Right.
So what kind of advice then do you tell patients in the short time that you do see them in the office? What advice do you give patients who say, hey, how can I reverse this disease? What do I need to do to melt some of that plaque?
I'm telling them that before they even ask me the question.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
Because some people don't know to ask the question.
That's true.
Some people are afraid to ask the question, and they just aren't getting that kind of information from the doctor, unfortunately, a lot of the time. So that is, listen, I've got an attentive listener after a heart attack or, angina, whatever. They're going to pay attention to what I have to say. And this is a time for them to be as aggressive as they possibly can in reducing saturated fat and trans fats from their diets. And if they do that in conjunction with other therapies that I give them, I mean, aspirin knocks the risk of another heart attack by 20 to 25%. The statin drugs have been, beyond a shadow of a doubt, for secondary prevention, reduce the risk another 25%. Beta blockers after a heart attack reduce risk by 20 to 25%. So you've knocked the disease state down by 80% with these therapies that we can give straight away from the get-go after the clinical event. And that has helped reduce recurrent heart attacks. It's kept people out of the hospital. They can go back to work sooner. They're less likely to develop congestive heart failure as a result. And they get it. A lot of people just get it. I had a patient that I had to put a stent in not too long ago that he weighed over 300 pounds. He had bad knees. He was in his early 50s still working as a truck driver and lifting a lot of heavy equipment. And he just was like not enjoying life. And he was on diabetes medications. His hemoglobin A1C was 11.5, and he was on metformin and other drugs that you use for diabetes. And I said, well, what are you doing about your diet?
Good for you.
Duh, you're not doing anything. He's still eating these, rich foods, and he's not really paying attention because he's not made the connection between how important the diet is and what's happened to his body. It's completely breaking down. So that guy, within 6 months, he lost 60 to 70 pounds. And when I saw him next, he looked like a different person. He was exercising 5 days a week. And he was no longer on metformin. His hemoglobin A1C was 5.7.
Isn't that awesome?
It's
and
fantastic.
It's all through the power of food.
Right.
Whatever passes these lips determine the outcome of the lining of our arteries. And I honestly, as a cardiac nurse of 35 years, most of that in intensive care and now in outpatient setting, I am thrilled to visit with a cardiologist that really sees the importance of not just medicine and intervention, but what we do to our bodies. So thank you so much for taking the time to share with part of your Carmichael community more of this information that you just have given us right now. I'm excited that you are here, and we're delighted that we get a full hour with you. And I know there will be a lot of questions at the end, so thank you. And in fact, we just are want to extend an invitation for you to come to our next month, March 3. We have another speaker. He's actually a coach, a wellness coach. He will be my first speaker that is not a physician, but I'm telling you, you will not want to miss his lecture. His name is Ruben Guzman. I don't know if you have met him yet, but he is a coach right here in Fair Oaks, and he's written a book. And it really pertains to what you're talking about, evolving health. So sign up. You're on our website already. There's a place for you to sign up and register for next month, March 3. So in the meantime, this is the time, no better time than the present, to take charge of our health and be proactive for our health. So thank you for joining us. Good night.